Ma'am, you need to stop resisting and get on the ground.
I'm standing still with my hands
You're
visible.
being belligerent. Get down now.
Officer, I'm a sitting federal judge. You're making a serious mistake.
I don't care who you think you are. On the ground.
My hands are empty. I'm not a threat, and your camera is recording this. But understand that every second of this is being recorded, and you're violating clearly established laws.
The parking lot security camera captured everything. Every word, every movement. And Officer David Hutchins had absolutely no idea that the woman he was about to handcuff had spent the last 19 years sitting on the federal bench, presiding over cases involving police misconduct, civil rights violations, and Fourth Amendment abuses. The woman standing next to the black Mercedes wasn't panicking, she wasn't crying, she wasn't begging. She was Judge Keisha Langford, and she had sentenced corrupt police officers to prison. She had ruled on qualified immunity cases. She had written legal opinions that became binding precedent in 3 states. And now she was about to become the plaintiff in a lawsuit that would cost the city hundreds of thousands of dollars and end multiple careers. Before we dive deeper into this, hit that subscribe button. This story gets even more intense. You don't want to miss what happens next. Keisha Langford was not someone who expected special treatment. At 52 years old, she had been a federal judge for nearly 2 decades. She had handled death penalty cases, organized crime prosecutions, and complex civil rights litigation. She was fair, thorough, and known for holding both prosecutors and defense attorneys to the highest standards. That Saturday afternoon, Judge Langford had been shopping. She had the key fob in her hand. She was dressed in casual weekend clothes, jeans and a blazer, nothing flashy. She was doing exactly what thousands of people do every day in parking lots across America, loading purchases into a vehicle and preparing to leave. Then she heard the voice behind her. "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle." Keisha turned around. A San Diego police officer was approaching her, hand on his service weapon, not drawn, but resting on it, a position of readiness. Officer David Hutchins was 36 years old, 8 years on the force, and responding to what he thought was a suspicious person call. Someone had reported a woman acting suspiciously near expensive vehicles in the parking lot. The description was vague. Black, female, medium build, near a black Mercedes. That was it. No description of suspicious behavior, no report of attempted theft, just a black woman near an expensive car. Hutchins had decided that Keisha was the suspicious person. Keisha kept her hands visible, one still holding her key fob. Is there a problem, officer? I need you to step away from the vehicle and show me some identification. Keisha's legal mind immediately recognized what was happening. This was a Fourth Amendment seizure. Hutchins had detained her without reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. She had two choices: comply and sort it out later, or assert her rights immediately. She chose assertion. Officer, I'm loading my own car with my own purchases. I have the key fob right here. What reasonable suspicion do you have that I'm engaged in criminal activity? Hutchins didn't like the question. Most people he stopped didn't ask questions. They just complied. Ma'am, I'm investigating a suspicious person report. I need to see your ID. What specific? Ma'am, you need to cooperate. I am cooperating. I'm asking you to articulate the legal basis for this stop. That's not obstruction. That's my constitutional right. The confrontation was escalating. Other shoppers were starting to notice. Some slowed down to watch. One woman pulled out her phone and started recording from about 20 feet away. I'm not going to ask again, Hutchins said. Step away from the vehicle and provide identification. Keisha made a decision. She would comply under protest, document everything, and handle this through the proper legal channels. She had been a judge long enough to know that arguing with police in parking lots was dangerous. Especially for Black Americans. Officer, I'm going to comply with your request, but I want to state clearly that this stop lacks reasonable suspicion and violates my Fourth Amendment rights. I'm reaching for my wallet now to retrieve my identification. She moved slowly, deliberately, Her hand stayed visible. She reached into her purse and pulled out her wallet. Inside was her driver's license, her federal judge identification, her courthouse security credentials, her California bar card showing she was a licensed attorney. She handed Hutchins her driver's license first. Hutchins looked at it. Keisha Langford. The address matched vehicle registration he could see through the windshield. This your car? He asked. Yes. Prove it. Keisha held up the key fob and pressed the lock button. The car's lights flashed and the locks clicked. She pressed unlock. The lights flashed again and the locks opened. Satisfied? She asked. Hutchins should have apologized and left. He had detained someone loading their own vehicle with their own belongings. There was no crime, no violation, no reasonable suspicion. So he doubled down. You're being belligerent and uncooperative. I'm gonna need you to wait here while I verify this information. Have you ever been detained by police for doing absolutely nothing wrong? Type yes or no in the comments. Keisha felt her anger rising, but she kept it controlled. Officer, I've provided identification. I've demonstrated ownership of the vehicle. There's no legal basis to continue this detention. Am I free to go? No, you need to wait while I run your information. On what grounds? On the grounds that I'm conducting an investigation? An investigation into what crime? Hutchins didn't answer. He walked back to his patrol car with Keisha's license. Keisha stood next to her Mercedes, hands visible, waiting. She looked at the woman who was recording and gave a small nod. Keep recording, the nod said. This matters. Hutchins sat in his patrol car, running Keisha's license through the system. It came back clean. No warrants. No criminal history. Perfect driving record. The registered owner of the vehicle matched the license. Everything checked out. Hutchins should have returned the license, apologized for the confusion, and let Keisha go. But he had a bigger problem now. He had made a bad stop and continued it past the point of reasonableness. He needed to find something to justify his actions. He got out of his patrol car and approached Keisha again. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to search your vehicle." Keisha's eyes narrowed. "On what basis?" "I have reasonable suspicion that there may be stolen merchandise in the vehicle." "Based on what?" "I have receipts for everything I purchased. The bags are from stores in this mall." "Your reasonable suspicion is based on what specific articulable facts?" Hutchins was trapped. He had no facts. He had a vague, suspicious person report and his own assumptions. That's not reasonable suspicion. That's not probable cause. That's bias. Ma'am, you're being uncooperative. That gives me reasonable suspicion. Keisha almost laughed. "No, officer. It doesn't. Asserting my constitutional rights is not evidence of criminal activity. Arizona v. Johnson establishes that clearly. You cannot use my refusal to consent to a search as justification for reasonable suspicion." Hutchins's face flushed. "Are you a lawyer?" "Yeah. I've been on the bench for 19 years. And you've just violated my Fourth Amendment rights in a way that is so clearly established that you won't be able to claim qualified immunity." Hutchins's hand moved away from his weapon. His posture changed. For the first time since the encounter began, uncertainty crossed his face. "I need to see proof of that." Keisha reached back into her wallet and pulled out her federal credentials. The official United States Court's identification with her photograph, her name, her title, and the seal of the federal judiciary. Hutchins took the credentials and studied them. His hands were shaking slightly. "This could be fake," he said, but his voice had lost its authority. "Call the federal courthouse. The main number is public. Ask for Chambers. They'll confirm my identity." The woman who had been recording spoke up from her position 20 feet away. "I've got all of this on video," she called out. "Everything." Hutchins looked at her, then back at Keisha. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step away from the vehicle." "We're past that point, officer," Keisha said calmly. You've already detained me unlawfully. You've continued the detention past any reasonable time frame. You've requested a search without probable cause, and now you're escalating because you've realized you made a mistake. What you should do right now is return my identification, apologize, and call your supervisor. I don't have to do anything. Actually, you do. Because I'm not just gonna file a complaint. I'm gonna file a federal lawsuit. And every decision you make in the next 60 seconds is going to be evidence in that lawsuit. Hutchins made his worst decision of the day. Instead of de-escalating, instead of calling a supervisor, instead of admitting the mistake and trying to minimize the damage, he decided to assert his authority. Ma'am, turn around and place your hands behind your back. You're under arrest. For what? Interfering with a police investigation. There is no investigation. There's an officer who saw a black woman in an expensive car and made assumptions. But if you're going to arrest me, do it. The video is rolling. My credentials are in your hand. And you're about to make the biggest mistake of your career. Do you think the officer should have just apologized and walked away at this point? Let me know below. Hutchins pulled out his handcuffs. Keisha turned around slowly. She placed her hands behind her back. The metal cuffs clicked around her wrists. The woman recording the incident was talking on her phone now.